two discoveries, years apart, should have closed two missing person cases forever. The first came when a bored car wash kid threw a rubber ball at a wall and accidentally knocked it into the weeds. When he went to fetch it, he found a human jawbone staring back at him from the dirt. The second came when a lone diver dropped into the black water of the Columbia River and finally brushed his hand against a twisted car buried deep in the silt. Almost exactly where police had always suspected a missing family had gone off the road. Both cases should have had simple endings. Instead, they show how close you can get to the truth and still never really reach it. In October 1998, at a small car wash off a main road in Chelton, Massachusetts, a young worker was killing time by bouncing a ball off the side of the building. One hard throw sent it flying over his head into the scrubby, overgrown lot next door. When he went after it, he saw something too white to be a stone and too smooth to be a branch. It was half buried in the soil. It was a human jaw. Police descended on the lot. Over 3 days, they pulled more bones from a shallow grave barely 25 centimeters deep. No flesh remained, but a thin silver necklace still lay around the neck bones. The victim, they believed, was a young woman. No local missing persons report matched. No one came forward to say, "That might be my daughter." It was obvious the remains had been there years. The girl in the ground had once been Emily Rae Carter. Emily's childhood had been a slow kind of destruction. Her birth mother, Darlene, was a violent alcoholic. By 4, Emily had a broken leg from an accident, so suspicious the state finally intervened. Emily and 2 siblings were taken into care. Her brother Paul slipped through the net and stayed behind. Emily was adopted into the Harper family in Maryland at 8, moved states, went to school, and for a while seemed safe. She loved drawing and music, but the old fear never really left. She jumped at footsteps in the hall. She worried any mistake would blow her new life apart. As a teenager, she started to talk more and more about the family she'd left behind. Letters, calls, questions. At 17, she made her choice. In the summer of 1989, Emily dropped out of school, packed a bag, and slipped away towards Massachusetts, determined to find Darlene and the siblings she barely remembered. She found them in a decaying apartment building near the train tracks in North Billerica. No hugs, no tears, just a hard woman and a daughter she'd given up, staring at each other across a cramped, sour-smelling room. Neighbors later said the atmosphere in that flat was cold and cruel. They saw Emily outside in tears more than once. Somewhere between December 1989 and January 1990, Emily simply vanished. No last phone call, no exact date. One week she was seen in the building, the next she wasn't. Darlene never reported her missing. She told anyone who asked that Emily had probably crawled back to her adoptive parents with her tail between her legs. The Harpers in Maryland filed a runaway report. Police assumed she didn't want to be found. Nearly a decade later, her bones turned up behind a car wash. When detectives dug into the business records, it got worse. The man who'd been managing the car wash while Emily's body lay just meters away in the dirt was Ray Doyle, her biological uncle, and, through a tangle of family relationships, also her stepfather. Her brother Paul had worked there too. The grave wasn't random. It was a family burial. Police circled the Doyles for months. Nobody broke. Then, in March 1999, Ray was found dead by suicide in a flat in Kentucky. Beside him was a note. "You were right, I did it." Ray had once gone to prison for killing a fiancée in a rage and hiding her in a shallow grave. Now he was the only named suspect in Emily's murder. With him gone, Massachusetts closed the file. No one else in that apartment on Wilson Road has ever been charged. The second case began almost half a century earlier. On December 7, 1958, Arthur and Helen Marlowe left their Portland, Oregon, home with their 3 daughters, 14-year-old Anna, 13-year-old Claire, and 11-year-old Sophie, in a cream and red Ford station wagon. They told neighbors they were heading into the Columbia River Gorge to cut evergreen branches for Christmas wreaths. They stopped for petrol at Cascade Locks. A diner waitress in Hood River remembered serving them a late lunch. The girls giggled. Helen drank coffee. Arthur paid, and they headed back toward Portland. They never arrived. By Monday, the girls hadn't shown up at school, and Arthur hadn't turned up for work. Police checked the Marlowe house. The washing machine held wet clothes that hadn't been hung. The kitchen looked like a family had left expecting to be back by dinner. No bags packed. No money withdrawn. No sign of a struggle. Near Cascade Locks, investigators found tire tracks in gravel near the river, heading dangerously close to the edge as if a vehicle had backed up and kept going. One sheriff suggested the Marlowe's car might have slipped into the Columbia River. Divers searched. Nothing. Stranger details cropped up. A stolen white Chevrolet was found abandoned near the same area that day. A bloodstained .38 revolver lay in the bushes nearby. The gun was traced back to a Portland department store where the Marlowe's estranged son had once worked and allegedly stolen a similar weapon. For reasons no one can fully explain now, the pistol was never properly tested. The man who found it was allowed to keep it. 2 local ex-cons who stole the abandoned Chevy were arrested. A waiter claimed he'd seen them in the same diner as the Marlowe's just before the family left. Investigators probed, then ruled them out. By early 1959, the case had turned into a tangle of half-clues. Detective Walter Grady became convinced something more than an accident had happened, but without a car, he had nothing solid to prove it. 5 months after the family vanished, the river finally gave up part of its secret. First Sophie, then Claire, washed ashore miles downstream. Their causes of death were listed as drowning. One technician thought he saw what looked like bullet damage to a skull. The medical examiner disagreed. Traces of aluminium on Sophie's clothing suggested the girls' bodies might have scraped past industrial debris on the riverbed. If the car was down there, it stayed hidden. Walter died in 1988, never having found it. For decades, the Columbia River kept its silence, until an amateur diver named Eli Archer decided it shouldn't. In 2024, using modern sonar, Eli searched near Cascade Locks, focusing on the same stretch where the old tire tracks had been found. After months of mapping the bottom, he found a deep pit in the riverbed. Something inside it was reflecting wrong. In March 2025, official teams moved in. Beneath meters of rock and silt, they found the twisted remains of a Ford chassis and engine, painted cream and red, almost certainly the Marlowe's station wagon. There were no human remains inside. No bullet holes anyone could see. No neat answers waiting in the mud. For now, the car sits in a warehouse, waiting for forensic work that might finally show whether a family simply missed a turn in the dark, or whether someone helped push them over the edge. 2 cases, decades apart. A girl buried almost in her family's shadow, and a family buried almost in plain sight. In both, the truth is right there, just under the surface. Close enough to touch. Still, somehow just out of reach.